All right. So, hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for KASF's, session on how to network through LinkedIn. I also want to give a big special thank you to all of you who actually completed our pre-event survey. It was super helpful. So, thank you doubly for doing that. My name is Christine, and I'm actually on the board of the Korean American Scholarship Foundation, and I also lead the Northeastern Regional Chapter's Young Professionals Committee. So intimately familiar with KASF, and as I know some of you have been doing, it would be great if you can introduce yourselves through the chat. So if anyone has just joined us, what we're putting in the chat is our name, our school, and our email address. Okay, so what is tonight about? We are, instead of doing a presentation, tonight's event is structured more like a fireside chat. So we have a wonderful guest speaker, Serena, and she and I are gonna really take this on more of a conversational feel. And as we do that, we're going to organize our conversation around three main pillars. So the first is, how do we approach networking through LinkedIn? I mean, that's what everyone's interested in. The second is, how do we address some fears that come up when we think about virtual networking? And then we're gonna end with some very practical tips on how to get you started if you haven't started yet. And for those who have, how to continue that effort, okay? And in the spirit of practice, in the spirit of virtual networking, at the end of our time, we're gonna leave quite a bit of time for you to answer additional questions. So you can kind of get a feel for it, kind of get a feel for being on camera and conversing with little images on a screen, because this is kind of what the world of work looks like right now. This is what networking looks like right now. And we want you to get hands-on experience. Okay, so keep that in mind. And if there's anything we don't address, please remember to do that later, okay? All right, before we go to this fireside chat, I wanted to introduce our fearless leader, KASF National's Executive Director, Dr. Eun-jung Lee, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. We welcome you to our second virtual session today. Many professionals are emphasizing the importance of networking these days. However, the networking has been changed and moved virtually for the past few months due to COVID-19. So we thought this topic is very timely and useful for you. For your update, many volunteers at the Korean American Scholars Foundation are evaluating your applications. Our timeline is to announce it in late August. So please wait for more. Thank you all, and please enjoy our second virtual education session, Networking Through LinkedIn. Christine?
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so just also as a preview, we're going to be sending out, I'll give more information about this at the end. There will be a post-event survey, so just be on the lookout for that. But let's get started. So I want to introduce to you Serena Chan, who is our guest speaker for this evening. And so Serena is actually right now working at a company called Fresh. It's a cosmetics company. She's the vice president of e-commerce. She's overseeing the direct-to-consumer owned brand site, e-retailers, customer relationship management, customer service, lots of things, pretty much. And she is a veteran in e-commerce, especially in apparel, beauty, and the fashion industry. I will allow Serena to give you a little more color about her story. And so we'll turn it over to her. And so Serena, if you can give us a little more about who you are, and then maybe that's a good way to start talking about your sort of LinkedIn journey.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very, very excited to be here tonight with all of you. And thank you for the introduction, Christine. So to kind of take it back in time, again, because tonight is about LinkedIn, I wanted to start my journey on LinkedIn there to kind of like walk you through some of my story. So I became a member on LinkedIn in 2005. And part of the reason why I joined LinkedIn is really because I wanted to switch job. I wanted to switch my career. I was very bored with what I was doing at that time. So then I needed to update my resume. I needed to update my profile. I just need to be somewhere. So then I decided that, you know, like, let me just pick one. There's really no calculation or strategy around it. It's like, let me start somewhere, right? So I decided to join LinkedIn in 2005. And I started researching, you know, the company at that time, which was my dream company that I really wanted to work for. It was Ralph Lauren. So I started searching for Ralph Lauren to see what jobs were they posting, you know, what are the job description that was there at that time that might pique my interest. I wasn't really quite sure what I was looking for yet, but I know that I wanted to work for Ralph Lauren. So that kind of started my journey, right? So I borrowed some tips and borrowed some sentences and paragraphs here and there and just kind of updated my resume. I know you guys just had a session earlier about resume, but that's kind of like how I updated my profile, my resume at that time. And then shortly after, I started getting various email from different recruiters and different HR managers. Not initially from Ralph Lauren yet. It wasn't like, you know, a magic path. But, you know, as I started like interviewing with different people and really modifying my resume each time, eventually I got an email from Ralph Lauren, and that kind of landed me there and began my journey of working there. So in a nutshell, that's kind of like where I started my journey on LinkedIn. And then as I accumulate more experience like throughout, I continue to build on my portfolio and my profile on LinkedIn and kind of go from there.
Okay, so then you've been using LinkedIn since 2005. It's 2020, so you have a bit of experience on the platform. I think it's changed a lot during that time too. I think they've provided more offerings. And really, though, it was designed as a networking tool, as a professional network. So how, and you've talked about this a little bit, but for someone who doesn't really have a network yet, how would you go about building that in LinkedIn?
That's a very good question. So the way I see LinkedIn is kind of like an Instagram for professionals. That's kind of how I would like to describe it, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys are on Instagram. So again, like I use LinkedIn for inspiration, for searches. One of the things that, and just as a personal disclaimer, I do not work for LinkedIn. I don't know how it works from an algorithm standpoint. So, you know, my agenda a lot of the time is to quote unquote win the buy box, right? Like win the algorithm. So, you know, even though you don't have any experience, what I would suggest is to go on LinkedIn, use it as a search platform, just like how you do it on Instagram, just like how you do it on Google search. Start looking for things that might pique your interest, right? You know, whether it is a full-time job, a part-time job, or an internship, whatever opportunities may be. I think that it's a good place, a thought starter to get the, you know, thinking juice going. I think that's kind of where I would recommend, even though you don't have a lot of experience yet. It's never too late to start somewhere. And I think LinkedIn is a good starting platform for professionals.
Yeah. And that makes sense, because even what I'm hearing is that more and more employers are looking at LinkedIn as a talent sourcing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a success story. Like you were able to find an opportunity through LinkedIn. I don't know how successful it is across the board. So have you heard of other success stories? I mean, full disclosure, I've used LinkedIn a lot, but haven't quite had that magic happen for me. So how effective is it?
I think it's a different story for everybody, right? Like to your point, you know, it has happened for me, like, you know, one time when I first started using it, and it didn't happen to me the second time, and it happened to me again. So I feel like everyone's story is a little bit different, but I think it doesn't hurt. Again, like even though you're not able to leverage LinkedIn to land a job, I think LinkedIn can be viewed as a platform to refine your thoughts, to refine your strategy, to refine what you're looking for, and to build up your profile. So I wouldn't use and treat LinkedIn as a, you know, one thing for all thing, but I think it could be utilized as a tool for many different purposes.
And I really appreciate that. So I think it's easy to think about networking. I think a lot of times there's so much stuff kind of rolled up into the word networking, lots of misconceptions and things that need to be broken down. And one of them is that networking is about getting a job. And so that it feels icky for some people about like, it's so transactional. Am I just reaching out to folks? But you brought up a good point that that's not the main focus. If that happens, great. But network building is beyond that. Mm-hmm. So I think there's multiple things that LinkedIn could do. So I would love for you to speak to folks who are trying to find a job, and how would they go about using LinkedIn for the job search? And for those who may not be doing that, who may just be interested in getting to know different industries or fields, how would you, I guess, encourage both those routes, people in both those routes, to go about getting to what they want to do?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'm going to speak to the first group first, right? For the people who are looking for a job, I would say, kind of identify what you're going after, or have an idea of what you're going after first, right? Like I have people who message me to want to have have a coffee, come up, just swing by my office if I have 5 minutes to connect with them, whether it is just for a conversation or for a potential job or internship opportunities. But in the way that they messaged me or emailed me, it was very intentional. They either connected with me with the fact that, oh, I'm also a New York University alumni. I went to New York University. So they found a connector point with me to kind of pique my interest, right? Like I'm probably, and this is their assumption, but it's a true assumption, I'm probably more likely to want to meet up with someone for coffee who is a NYU alumni over a Columbia alumni. Right. But not to say that there's anything against Columbia. It's just purely because of the fact that I went to NYU. So there's more of a connection there. Right. So my suggestion or recommendation for people who are looking for a job is that find that connection, whatever it may be, when you message and try to connect with someone, so that your actions is paired with the intentions that you're going after. Right. And that's given that you kind of know what you're after. You can be going after multiple different directions, industry and whatnot, and that's completely okay, but with the person that you're messaging with and connecting with, make sure you make your point clear to them so that they don't glance over an email and think that, you are not worthwhile for my time. Because think about the people you're trying to connect with, right? They have a full-time job probably. They're very busy. They, have no reason to make time for you unless you make it a reason for them to make time for you. So I think that's really important.
Serena, I loved that point that you just said. So I want to just expand on it, because just in case you're going to the non-job search route. So this whole idea about making it easy, because I think sometimes it can be, oh, I've never heard back from this person. And maybe the first question there will be, well, did I make it easy for this person to reach out? I think I've heard people who have used LinkedIn say, when you make a request, make sure that you have specific questions. To your point, make it very clear why you want to connect with this person, how you know this person, or what's that connecting point. I think that's key. And don't ask for a lot of time. Like hey, can I get on an hour-long virtual coffee chat with you? You're laughing because probably that's not going to fly. It's not going to fly for anybody. Any other recommendations around how to even just craft that initial, I really don't know this person, but I'm fascinated by what they do and I really want to connect? Any pointers?
Again, this is just my personal experience, and I think that depending on the person you're trying to reach out to, they might have different agenda, right? So my recommendation is do not get discouraged just because you didn't hear back from the person, cast a wider net. You don't hear back from me, maybe try somebody else, because I think that's how the platform is designed, right? There are so many people who are currently active on this platform. You don't have to worry about one person not following you, not liking you, not getting back to you. Like, cast a wider net. You have nothing to lose. But again, it goes back to make sure as you cast a wider net, your message is intentional and it's clear with what you're asking for from that person. I think, again, for the person I actually met up with for a coffee break, I connected with her for half an hour. If I remember correctly, her email to me was, I'm available anytime. So, whatever works for you, I just, wanted to have coffee with you. And she's actually a marketing student who was graduating from an MBA program. She was looking for a summer internship. So she did make her intention clear to me in her email. And we were looking for, at that time, coincidentally, summer interns with an MBA degree. So again, you don't know what the recipient might be, you don't know what the opportunities are like on the recipient's end, right? So it doesn't hurt to try and to keep trying. So, and I went for coffee with that girl and she wrote me a very nice email after that. And then the internship didn't pan out, but I'm sure I gained a few things from connecting with her, and I hope she gained a few things from connecting with me as well.
Sure she did. So then maybe a couple of pieces on folks who aren't looking for a new job, and that's not what they're looking to use LinkedIn for, but they do want to grow their network, because that's so important, even as we think about long-term, our career trajectories. So any thoughts on how to just generally build a network? And then we're going to sort of pivot and shift to talking about something a little bit different.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things I do even when I'm not looking for a job. I endorse people. So what endorsement is that, if someone is good in Excel, someone is good in PowerPoint, or someone is good in presentation, you can very easily endorse them. So when you endorse someone, they get a notification, and I mean, obviously do it in a meaningful way. Like, you endorse someone that they have that authority in the skill set, right? So not only are they getting a notification that you have endorsed them for that skill, but you are also subsequently showing up on their profile, right? So it's kind of like a domino effect if you think about it. Again, same way as Instagram. When you like someone's post, when you make a comment on someone's post, that person could become a much bigger influencer than you, but subsequently you're benefiting from it, because as their followers reading through the comment, and whatnot, they're seeing you. So think about it from that angle. Another couple of things I would do is that, as you go onto LinkedIn, is again, same thing as Instagram and Facebook, is a feed, right? So something I also do is that I will comment on posts, or I will like a post. Again, this is also another way of building your engagement on the platform and winning the algorithm, which I think is really important, even though you're not directly searching for, one thing that I have to share is that on your profile, there's a dashboard. The dashboard tells you how many searches you personally appear in other people's searches. And that's important, because you're building authority in that, right? As you're writing your profile, as you're engaging and interacting in the system, you are winning the algorithm in the sense that allow you to show up more in searches. So further down the line, when you're actually looking for a job, the likelihood of you appearing in recruiter or hiring managers' searches is probably much greater than people who haven't done anything on the platform yet.
Such good pointers. I think there's, and no, we're kind of scratching the surface, but I hadn't even really thought of LinkedIn that way, and I thought I was using it pretty well, but clearly there are other ways for me to grow. So thank you for that.
One more thing that I forgot.
Yes,
I have to add, interest groups is also very important. So, I'm sure you guys all have various interests. I mean, I think joining interest groups will allow those posts from other people who are also part of the interest groups pop up in your feed as well. So that was my last thing.
Thank you. I think the other thing that I've done and people have done for me is write recommendations. So, when you're going through the job process, people usually ask for references, and it's almost like that. It's that recommendation that you give for other people and they give for you kind of builds that up at the bottom of your profile. So anyone who wants to get a sense of like, who is this person? You have your sort of like fan role saying like, oh, she's amazing for X, Y, and Z reason. So I've appreciated that. Okay, pivoting a little bit. I'm speaking to all our folks over here who may not feel so comfortable with networking generally, with virtual networking specifically. I know that we have introverts, and I know that there are these sometimes myths around Koreans or Asians being quiet. So yeah, sometimes this word's scary. So I want to talk about fear right now and how to allay some of those fears. But for our introverts, for our extroverts also, who are not so comfortable with this yet, who might struggle with some social anxiety, what's your advice specifically for them? And for us, I'm gonna put myself in that category.
Yeah, of course. My advice is practice makes perfect. I think, in the beginning, especially there are times definitely like, in my career life that I'm a little bit more desperate, where I really feel like I really want this job. I don't understand why that person's not writing back to me, and I feel very rejected, in that regard. And I think, it's the kind of emotion that we all go through, right? When someone don't follow us, someone don't like us. And I think, after a couple of practice, I felt like, you're starting to kind of get used to it and accept it. And kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, cast a wider net. You have nothing to lose. I know that, there are a lot of jobs out there. Might not be at this very moment because we do have a relatively high unemployment rate, but I think there are still jobs out there. I know for my company, for instance, we're still hiring, although like not at the same magnitude that we used to before, but there are jobs out there. And I think that, if something is not working in the direction that you're going, think about different strategy, think about different sectors, that might be of interest to you. I think, I wouldn't pigeonhole to say that, just because someone didn't get back to you, just because, what you really, really wanted is not panning out, that this is, an end all be all.
So that the practice makes perfect. I like that. I'm sure that when you don't hear back, it feels like rejection. I don't know about other people, but there's a voice in my head, and that voice isn't very nice to me. So I think like step one is to just silence the voice and keep chugging on. Yeah. And so mentioning that, I think that was a really important piece to pull out. And you also touched upon the current climate, the current economic climate. I just want to voice those realities. Yes, it is a crazy time. Yes, there's a ton of unemployment. And yes, it's tricky right now in the job search. I'm going to speak specifically to the job search. And just sort of kind of full disclosure for me, I had just gone through, over the last 6 months, a job search process right smack in the middle of this pandemic. And I have to admit, I think applied for like 5 times as many jobs as I had before. But it kind of ends as a happy story because I am at an organization that I love, doing really incredible work. So it's possible. Hold on hope. I felt that too, but it is possible, and I'm a success story. For the pandemic time, Serena is a success story for using some of these tools. And so then continuing.
Can I add on to one more thing? And this is a true story, like, I want you guys to hear that too. Like, I know for my company in the beginning of COVID, and a lot of companies doing the same thing where like they're downsizing, right? They're making one person do 2 people's job, so because, everything is cutting, they don't know how the operating profit is going to turn out for the quarter. So everyone's going toward that very conservative route. But I have to say, after coming out of Q2 earnings, at least for my company, we're starting to pivot because we realize that, making one person do 2 jobs is not adequate, and it's not sustainable, and it's not allowing us to grow. So we are already started pivoting in Q3, and going into Q4. So things are changing. And things are changing, for people on the inside that I'm able to tell you, but you guys don't know that, which is why I think that, it's not just empty words for us to be telling you guys to not give up hope. I think you need to keep trying because you don't know what is happening on the other side. And I think when the right time comes and you show up in the right moment, where people are able to connect with you, the opportunity is yours.
Yeah. And you have a ton of experience, Serena. So I'm going to, so my next question in this sort of like fears and anxieties category is, what if I'm someone who's just out of college, or maybe I'm still in college? I just don't have a lot of experience. And what do I do to make myself noticed? How can I leverage something when I really don't have much information to put on?
Yeah, no, I think, to start, I always recommend people just starting creating your profile with your picture. And I think LinkedIn has a lot of intuitive tools that really guide you through like how to like write a LinkedIn bio, how to like, put in the logo. Everything is pretty self-explanatory. And full transparency, I'm sure you guys have tried to look up my LinkedIn profile already. Even my LinkedIn bio, the one that I share with Christine and she kind of read out loud to you guys, it was written by LinkedIn, because what they do is a search algorithm, right? They grabbed all my different experience and they kind of formulated something that makes sense and I think is true. So I think I did like very minor tweaking and I kept it as such. So my recommendation is that even though you don't have a lot of experience, use the tool to build out your education, your volunteer work, like, your interest groups, write up posts or engage with like posts that might be of interest to you. And I feel like that's the starting point. Regardless of like, how much experience you have, you guys all, in a solidified format have your college education or your MBA education, which I think is something that you need to be proud about. And I think there's also an area you can put in your achievements there. And I think, any worth mentioning achievements that you guys deem, you should absolutely add that to your profile.
True. And I think there's also, if I remember correctly, a volunteer experience section. So there are all of these other sections that you can use and you can take advantage of. And so we are going to now talk, and I'm actually really grateful, Serena, that you've been talking about so much practical application throughout. I'm trying to take mental notes as I'm going too. And if, for those of you who are just in front of your laptops, pull up LinkedIn, by the way, log in and look at it. If you find someone that you want to connect with, find Serena. Serena's not going to get bombarded with like all of these LinkedIn requests. Find me, find EJ, and start do that as one practical application, even right now, right after now. But let's talk more about that, the very like concrete steps that we can take. Okay, so I'm gonna, and I know that a lot of people already have LinkedIn profiles and stuff, but let's imagine that I'm brand new to this. I've never heard of LinkedIn, and I've just typed it in right now because this person, Christine, told me to, and create a profile. What's the best way to start? What do I do from that moment?
Put up your picture, put up your name.
Great, thank you. I mean, I think there are a number of people who don't have photos on LinkedIn. Does surprise me sometimes. Okay, so that's a very concrete thing that you can do. Okay.
I have to say photo. I mean, I know I haven't updated the photo. You're probably looking at that photo, be like, that doesn't even look like her. But I think a photo is super important. And I tell you this because there are, I'm sure you guys know there's a lot of scammers out there. I know for our HR department, as they're, going through like so many applicants a lot of the times, one of the criteria that they filter out applications is whether or not someone has a photo.
How about like that banner thing in the back behind your photo? How important is that? Update that? Don't update that?
I knew you were going to ask that, even though it was not in my questions. I don't know how important that is. I'm sure like it makes you stand out sometimes if someone actually pull up your profile. I don't feel confident enough to answer that because I don't know what the algorithm, right? But I think, again, it to me, it's kind of like, how you decorate your page. This is your page. You own your name, you own your experience, you own your experience, and I think how you decorate it, represent and give people an indication of who you are. You know, do I like blue? I have my blue in there. Do I like stars? You know, put up the stars. But I feel like it gives people a flavor. How important that is, I don't know.
Well, thank you. I know I was just gonna, because I was thinking about it when I was preparing for this, and I was like, hey, I haven't changed that background. Should I? And then I started like stalking people. I was like, did they change theirs? And to note, I don't think a lot of people didn't, so I don't think it's the end of the world. But when it is changed, it does stand out. Like it does catch my eye. Okay, so how about for folks who aren't really, they're not writers. I know that people put up posts and there's that feed. Do I have to do that? How active should I be on a feed?
Very good questions. I think, you know, I'm not a writer either, which is why I use LinkedIn a lot of the times to research and also to borrow other people's languages. I personally haven't written anything, but I've commented, I've liked other people's feed. Again, like those are all metrics that help you win the algorithm, right? Because the goal is for you to show up. The goal is for you to be seen. The goal is for people when they're searching for, you know, something of interest to you, that your name show up. So ultimately, all of the different things that you do, or you know, it's a summation for the end results of showing up, where you want to be seen at least.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I actually do love writing, but I just don't do it on those kinds of formats. But how about for invitations? So like, as we think about networks and growing networks, and I'm talking about the collective we, all of us folks here who are going to go in and start like sending invitations to folks. If I start getting invitations back, and I might not know these people, what should I do? Is there a general rule? Do I accept everyone? Do I get very selective? Do you have and I know this might be personal preference, but what would your thoughts be on that?
So I'm going to speak about both ends. I'm going to talk about sending invitation first before I talk about receiving invitation. So one thing I do when I was looking for a job is that I will often look at people within the company that I want to work for, and their, you know, similar titles that I wanted to aim for, or like the people I may potentially like ended up reporting into, just to kind of like get myself like, you know, seen by them, right? Hopefully, if they accept my invitation. But outside of the company that I wanted to work for, I also look at competitor company within the industry. And then I also, because what happened is that when you look at that person's profile, they know that someone have seen, or i.e. someone you have looked at their profile. So that also get you a view by them, right? So if I'm already being seen by them, I might as well either one, connect with them, or like borrow some of their experiences from the profile. That hopefully, if it's true, you know, I have to be honest, right? If it's true, then I wanted to add that to mine as well. So those are usually my ways of sending out invitation, along with some of my my fellow NYU alums I would also connect with to broaden that network. But I do it in a very intentional way. I don't just cast like, you know, again, like I've accumulated a number of experience, so I don't do it like to too many people. I do it, you know, with intentions, with who I sent invitation to, that I wanted to connect with. And in regards to whether or not, like, and how I accept invitations, because I am in marketing, I am in e-commerce, as you guys can imagine, I get tons of invitations every day from sponsors, vendors, like, you know, who wanted to work with me. So I think, you know, if it is a product solution, for example, that I'm like, you know, interested in to learn about, maybe not today, but in the long run, I will accept the invitation. But if it's like, you know, for example, like a developer in India wanted to connect with me because they're interested in working my like codes on the website, I'll probably not connect with them because I don't deal directly with developers, and neither do I work with anyone from India. You know, so I think there is a filtering process there, because the last thing that I needed after I connected with them is for them to message me constantly, because there is a level that you can set in your settings, and that's really important. You need to look at your settings. Do you allow everyone to be able to see you? Do you allow everyone to be able to message you? Do you allow them to have a public view of your contact information? Do you want to make it private? You have to kind of come through them a little bit more carefully to the degree that you're comfortable with. So for me, because I'm often, pretty bombarded, with chats and email all the time already at work, I like to minimize some of that noise. So I generally make mine pretty private until I accept that person into my network.
Great, thank you. And I do want to leave people time to ask their own questions. So folks, get ready. Think about what you want to say, because I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and ask a question, all right? So that this thing that Serena and I've been doing, you get to do a little bit with us. But I want to ask one last question. Serena, if you can answer quickly. So do I have to do this? Like, I am not, say that I don't really like social media or this networking thing. Is LinkedIn necessary? Is having a profile necessary?
If it was back in 2005 when I first joined, it might not be as necessary, but I can tell you the truth that right now, most companies who don't have money to go through recruiters, they're going through these platforms to find candidates that they wanted to hire. So, my recommendation is that you wanted to show up where people are searching, for hires. So I'm not saying LinkedIn is the only platform or application. There are other ones out there. Do you need to be in all of them? If you have time, sure. But I feel like LinkedIn is one of the main one that at least for my company, we actively utilize it, to find candidates.
Thank you. And I would echo that. I think a lot of the recruiters or companies that I've talked to have been moving more and more to LinkedIn. And also, as an aside, I had the great pleasure of going to LinkedIn's New York office, and gorgeous, and they had the best food, and it was all free. And at the time of my life, that's not a LinkedIn endorsement. Clearly, it's just like their food is great, but I know they're growing, and that this trend doesn't seem to be abating at all. Okay. It's the moment everyone's been waiting for. They've just been holding their breath, like just so eager to get in on this conversation. To I guess avoid everyone sort of talking on top of each other, what I would recommend is, if in the chat, if you want to ask a question, if you can type in hand, and then I will call out your name. Please ask your question, okay? And for those who may not quite feel ready to do this on camera and use your voice, I guess, you can still chat questions into the box, okay? So who's our brave first person who's going to raise a hand and converse with us? All right, Hannah. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry, Kahe, I think was first. So Kahe first, Hannah second.
Great, hi, nice to meet you, I'm Kahe.
Hi.
My question for you, Serena, is that I noticed when you initially began job searching for your dream role at Ralph Lauren, you transitioned into a similar role as sort of a planning manager. But when you were moving into a more e-commerce oriented role, how did you leverage your profile to pivot into like a completely sort of different function? And I ask because I actually come from executive search, so I use LinkedIn a lot from the recruiting side, but I'm trying to pivot also into the skincare industry, coincidentally. So it'd be great to just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so good question. Very good question, actually, an observation. So I didn't have any e-commerce background. When I landed in French Connection, actually, I was also doing very similar role in planning. So there's nothing to update there. But my boss at that time took a leap of faith on me, and basically just handed me like, the whole e-commerce department to manage and run with. So then that's kind of how I earned or gained that e-commerce background. And subsequently, I was able to add that to my profile because of that. So it wasn't via LinkedIn of that sort. It was truly because somebody took a leap of faith, in me. However, I've been in fashion and accessories, like, pretty much for my majority of my career, and I did not have any skincare background. But Fresh actually found me on LinkedIn, not because, of my, skincare background, because I clearly didn't have any, but I think a lot of recruiters are now looking for cross-industry hire. but they're looking for that skill set that you owned, regardless of whether or not you have previous beauty or skincare, experience and whatnot. So that's kind of, how I am where I am today, actually at Fresh. The hiring manager found me on LinkedIn.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Also, you should look at, I think one of the benefits of connecting with people is that you get access to their networks. So if there's a company that you're really interested in and a friend of a friend of a friend works there, ask for an introduction. I think the warm intros, at least for me, seems to be some of the most effective. So keep them in mind. I mean, that's what this platform is supposed to be leveraging.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Right,
Hannah, of course, Hannah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
My question was, what are some mistakes people make when they're networking with LinkedIn or other resources?
Some mistakes that I've seen, they are not who they claim to be on their profile. I've met, unfortunately, a handful of people who claim that they have certain type of experience, or they have gone, to the far end to describe, what they, how they've like owned or operated in the previous experience to get themselves an interview. But by the time when I met with them and connected with them, they weren't able to speak or substantially describe, or answer my questions, of what I needed to know to even get them to the next level. So be honest, don't lie, but, elaborate be proud of what, you have achieved or, what you've done, but be honest.
The other thing I would add to that also is, I think because of the way LinkedIn is organized, I think you can like send a bunch of messages or a bunch of connection requests to people. But when I get a request and I don't know that person directly, I generally won't accept. But if I do, and I go out of my way, I'll say, thank you for your request to connect. Why do you want to do this? And also, did we meet before, or how do I know you? What's going on? So I think I'm rare in doing that because I want to really know every single person in my network, so that if say like Gabriella decides that she wants to talk to, I don't know, Taurus from Blue Meridian, I can say, hey, this is how I know Gabriella, let me make the connection. If I don't know the people on my network, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I always really appreciate it. Instead of doing just like the random connect, take 30 seconds and put in a message, because that the likelihood, and it could be, I don't know you, but I think you're like the coolest person on the planet and I want to connect. I don't know if that's going to work, but something to frame and give context to why you're reaching out. Okay? Yeah. Also, we have way more space, folks, for your questions. I was really impressed, by the way, for those 2 first hands that shot up. But for those who need a little more encouragement, here it is, encouragement. All right, Grace. Well, Gabriella too. I keep saying the second person first. So Gabriella and then Grace.
All right. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Gabriella. My question is, so my school personally uses Handshake. I don't know if you've heard of it. And I know that there's so many, internet job platforms out there. I guess for somebody, because after your presentation, I'm so convinced, I have to jump onto LinkedIn. I guess, what are the salient features of LinkedIn that I guess distinguish it from these other job platforms?
I think LinkedIn has a little bit more of a longevity, with the platform. So a lot of the companies, and I think it may vary sector by sector, right? And again, my experience has really been only in fashion, accessories, and also beauty. That I know for every single one of the company that I've worked at, the hiring manager and the recruiters I've worked with predominantly utilize LinkedIn. Now, that's not to say that, Handshake and the other tools are not good. I'm not saying that at all. But, I think, if you have the time to be active, and engaging in all of those platforms, be my guest. But I know for a fact that, like, because of the longevity of LinkedIn, has been in the space, you know, a lot more people are utilizing LinkedIn to find qualified applicants.
Thank you.
Great question. Grace, how about you? And right before Grace speaks, I also did put in the chat, if you don't have a question, but you have something that you want to share, a comment, embarrassing story, those are some of my favorites, feel free to do that. Again, use this as an opportunity to practice, like sort of awkwardly kind of trying to not look at yourself while you're having a semi-decent conversation. We want this to be a space for you. But going back now to Grace.
Hi, Christine. Hi, Serena. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Hi.
I guess my question for you is there such a thing as listing too much experience on your LinkedIn profile? Like, you know, maybe there are certain things that we might want to focus on that showcase certain qualities, or should we just kind of put it all out there?
Very good question. I think that, you know, in this day and age, people have very little time and very little patience to scroll through like everything, right? So I think that, again, be intentional about what you do. If you know that the job that you're looking for example, is in accounting, I'm making it up, you know, list the experience that is relevant to get you that job in accounting. You know, they may not necessarily be interested in your, you know, experience in, you know, engineering or coding, because that's not ultimately what you're going for. So my recommendation is curate the ones that you want people to see at the top and put the other experience that people might not necessarily get to, maybe further down on your profile. So it will still be there, again, to boost your search algorithm, right? But keep the top of something that you want people to read and see.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Also, Grace, this is kind of sort of related. I would like to think that it's related. So when I first put my profile together, and especially when I was doing my job search, you really used LinkedIn almost like a resume. So there was a lot more text in it than there is right now. And then I made a very sort of intentional decision to get rid of a lot of that text, mostly because the role I'm in now, the organization that I'm in now, is one that could have a lot of people looking for connections. So there's no mystery here. I work for a philanthropic organization. We get about hundreds of millions of dollars. And so lots of requests that might come in. And so that was an intentional decision on my part, but I know that previously it really had like chunks of text in so that people wouldn't have to try to figure out like, okay, so she was a program director, what does that mean? She's a senior associate now, what does that mean? I kind of want them to do a little digging or maybe not really know, but think about those things.
Yep, so making the information more accessible.
Yeah, so I am actually going to call out, I'm getting some really fun private chats here, and apologies, yes, for those who are, I've been honest, I'm gonna call you this one person out. So HJ asked a great question. So HJ Lee, I will invite you to ask your question to the group.
Hi there. I'm HJ. I am the president of the Northeast chapter. So I thank you for coming tonight to listen to Serena. Serena is very well qualified to speak on this topic. But my question to all of you, especially the panelists here, I see a little symbol that says join premium for 30 days for free. Is it worth it for students to pay for that premium? I don't know what that premium entails, but is it worth it for them?
So I have never joined the premium, gotten job, even though I've never paid for a dime to join the premium. Now, I know Christine, you probably speak more to it. Again, like from the very start of it, I just wanted to share this my personal experience. You know, I think that people are filtering out, people are filtering in resume regardless of whether or not they are a premium. But I think what premium does, one thing I know for a fact, is that it allow you to show up more at the top of the searches. again, it goes back to like, you know, the algorithm, right? You want it to show up at the top. You want to show up more as people are searching for qualified applicants. So I think there's one thing that the premium does is to allow you to show up more. But, I mean, I've never paid for it.
Yeah, I have twice. And I have never gotten a job through LinkedIn. So and I think I've mentioned this before, every one of my jobs has been like a blind resume throw. So, and I'm the odd one out. I think 80% plus of roles are through networks. And that's probably how LinkedIn was born. So I am not poo-pooing networks at all. I did though find premium pretty helpful in that it gives you a lot more access to information. So when Serena was saying, you can see the people who've seen your profile. Sometimes you can't. This gives you a lot more information about who's seeing your profile. It shows you trends on like how much you've been searched this week versus next week. And I don't know if this is a premium function, but it also curates a bunch of different job opportunities that you're looking for and sends them right to you, and then tells you what, like your top 5%, top 10%, top whatever percent to help. And so even though I didn't decide to get a job through LinkedIn, I did go through like 3rd round interviews for 2 organizations that both were through LinkedIn. So I'm not going to, so it does work in that sense. And you get access to LinkedIn Premium, which is their learning site. And they have some great videos on like a whole ton of topics. So is it worth it? Is a trickier question to answer for me. But the next time I have to look for a job, will I sign up for it and like pay the what, 20 some odd dollars? Probably yes. I don't know if that makes me a sucker or not, but that's my personal piece.
Yeah. So on the free version, you have basic level of insights, you know, in terms of like how many times you show on people searches, like, you know, how many people view your profile, like this week versus last week and stuff like that. You're not able to see who is it that view your profile. So there's limitations, right, with the level of information that you get. But again, it goes back to like, what are you looking to get out of? Like, you know, is that going to help you that you see like, you know, all of these people look at your profile? If they're not going to message you or contact you or reach out to you, like, what are you going to do about it? But if it makes you feel better psychologically, sure, go pay for it.
Exactly. There are other reasons. Okay. I'm conscious of time and I know there are some hands going up, so thank you. I am going to first call on Angela to just share a little bit, and then I think the order is Tokyung, Angela, Abigail. Or I'm sorry, I said Angela. Angela, Tokyung, and then Abigail. Okay.
So, hi everyone. So I am actually the Western region's YP, I guess, liaison, or I guess you can call it a chair or whatnot. I really enjoyed the presentation today, and the general sense that I kind of seem to get. I currently work as a life and career coach, so I do a lot of career and kind of life guidance to people who feel like they're in a position where they're stuck and they don't know how to get past their fears. Now we talked a little bit about fears, and especially in the LinkedIn realm, a lot of people tend not to decide to do something or message somebody because they don't know if it's a right or wrong thing. I think that, in the Western society, we tend to get brainwashed into, kind of thinking, is this the right answer? Is this the wrong answer? If it's the wrong answer, what is that going to mean about me? So there's a lot of kind of subconscious fears that kind of creep up, right? I think the thing is, all these devices are wonderful, but the key is that no matter what, just give it a try. If it's the wrong thing, quote unquote, whatever that means, you can always update your profile. Right? The key is you just have to do it. So the people who are usually successful and get over those fears are the people who have courage, right? And courage is not being scared though, because courage is being scared, but you do it anyways, right? And the thing is, it's on the trial and error. When I made even my LinkedIn profile right now, listening to the presentation, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a lot to work on. Right? Does that mean I'm a failure, or does that mean that I'm a bad person because my LinkedIn sucks or whatnot? It doesn't mean anything, because now I know, and knowledge is power, so now I can go back and fix it. So this is all a learning process, and many college students and even recent grads, they have a lot of fear looming them. They're like, when I make my profile, I need to make my profile perfect, right? But there is no perfect profile. because every profile is different. You just have to start somewhere. And then as you're building it, you're going to see other people's profiles and you're like, you know what? I kind of like the way she did that. Let me revise this a little bit. Oh, I like the way they put a banner there. Or maybe I should update my profile picture. So you kind of learn it as you go. But if you let the fear overwhelm you, you're never going to have a profile. You may lose all that opportunity.
Amen.
Yeah, I think it's so true. One thing I was going to add to that, you know, I think people, and you guys all know that, you know, with your usage of Instagram, our attention span is so short. You know, something that might be so important as a trend today, or maybe tomorrow, guess what? You're going to have a new trend in a few days later. And I think that, you know, and seeing it, and I keep referencing to Instagram because I know all of you guys have Instagram and you guys are very comfortable in Instagram. You know, see LinkedIn as a similar platform of that sort. You know, it doesn't stick, you know, with people for too long. They're going to forget about it and move on to something else because the network is so large.
Okay, I can't believe how quickly time has passed. It is 7:56 and we are committed to getting you out of here at 8 on the dot. But Togyong and Abigail, I want to just applaud your willingness to just put up your hand. So I'm going to call on you. If you can just keep it to a 30-second question, Serena, 30-second response, and then we'll close. Okay?
Deal.
Hi. Thanks. I'm still an undergrad. It just seems like a lot of people here have college degrees already. So do you think LinkedIn is still necessary for students who still are working on their undergrad degree?
Absolutely. Use LinkedIn as a search platform, you know, search for different things like so you can start building your mindset as what you want to go after, right? Or even like maybe pick up a different class or course that might pique interest to you after reading about someone's profile that will get you there. You know, by the time when you graduate, you're that much more empowered. I see it as a learning platform as well. There are also, one thing I didn't share earlier, there are quizzes that you can take on LinkedIn, Excel, PowerPoint, Word, you know, it's so satisfying. I actually just took Excel the other day. Satisfying when you're able to complete it and get a certification on LinkedIn for passing this quiz. So definitely.
Great, thank you. Abigail, I see you. Please ask. And Alex, hand question mark. If we can get to you, we will.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Serena and Christine, for moderating and speaking. I just had a quick question about more of the idea of networking. Sometimes it's, I guess for me, just a little bit uncomfortable. Like I was wondering how you kind of approach the idea of just like contacting and trying to reach out to people to like get something from them or get something out of them. I don't know if there's a helpful way to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's something I shared earlier in the chat, you know, find a connection point, you know, with that person, right? But before you do that, like know your intents, you know, why do you want to connect with that person? You know, is there something that you would like to know more about that person, whatever that may be? You know, so know your intent before you reach out. And then find the connecting point with that person. Write a short message, you know, just a few sentences. You know, I think that would make you stand out a little bit more for that person to decide whether or not to connect with you. So again, it goes back to, you know, practice makes perfect, right? I think, you know, person ignore you, go to someone else and keep going. There's so many people who are currently on the LinkedIn platform. I don't think you would run out of people that you know, would be able to connect with.
Thank you. Okay, so Alex, unfortunately, we can't get to you, but as your next step, and then as other people's next steps, connect with us. Find us on LinkedIn. If there's a question, ask it to us. We will get back to you. So thank you, all of you, for being part of this just big conversation. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day. I hope this was helpful. It was super fun for me, like just personally, but I'm really grateful that we got to share this with all of you. And that's my alarm telling me that it's 8 on the dot. One main request is that there is a post-event survey going out. If you've liked this, if you didn't like it, please share, because this is the only way we improve, okay? We want 100% response rate. So while it's still fresh in your mind, the moment you get it, you best click or whatever it is and give us this feedback. We're gonna be waiting for it. And as a reminder, there is one last session in this sort of virtual education series that KASF is doing. That's next Wednesday, August 12th at 7 p.m. And it's going to be on financial management. If you're not on it, please think about, I guess, signing up and join us, okay? And I guess with all of that, thank you, Serena, EJ, for making this possible. All of our great guests who have just popped in, I didn't know you were going to be here. Thank you for being part of this, and good night.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I also lied. It's 8:01, but.